So, Kevin, to kick this one to you, who deserves the most blame for the Cowboys' loss against the 49ers by the score of 23-17?
Just gonna be honest. It's to me, Kyle and I were talking about this my entire drive home from my girl's house. It's the players, man. And I know it's hard to say that because the players are prepared with the coaching staff or by the coaching staff. You're supposed to get your team ready, you're supposed to give them discipline and all these different things. But at the end of the day, the players are the only people on the field. The players are the only people that can execute and go out there and go and make an impact. 14 total penalties are not a positive impact. 89 yards of penalties are not a positive impact. The time of possession on the offense is significantly less than what the 49ers had. And that is in part because the offense was inept for basically 3 quarters. The defense could not stop San Francisco for 3 quarters. Now, can you blame the coaching staff to an extent for maybe not preparing them enough or maybe not going hard enough in practice? Potentially. It's unfortunate because the way the world works, a lot of these coaches will get the axe despite the players underperforming. In this particular instance, I have to say the players. Dak Prescott didn't play too well. The running game, Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard played absolutely atrocious. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this stat line, and I'm pretty sure I'm looking at Zeke had 31 yards, 2.6 yards per carry. The Dallas Cowboys as a unit, 77 total yards rushing, 3.7 per carry. Dak Prescott leads your way with rushing yards per attempt at 6.8 and a rushing touchdown? That's embarrassing. I don't understand. Dak Prescott also goes for a QBR of 27.2. Had a turnover. It did not bode well for the offense of Dallas. The almighty Trayvon Diggs was blown out of proportion and absolutely looked like garbage for the majority of this game between blown coverages and not being able to stick to his assignment. Micah Parsons made an impact, but of course, Micah was shook early on in the game. It could look like maybe some COVID-19 existing symptoms between, exhaustion, maybe shortness of breath. He was consistently on the sideline with oxygen. So maybe he came back a little too soon. But definitely, I'm 100% putting this on the Cowboys players to have more discipline, or should I say they did not have any discipline, and then they weren't able to execute until it was too late. Now, the game ended on somewhat of a controversy. Not that many people know this, but you cannot snap a ball until the referee places the ball at the yard line in which the play ends. You can't just bring the ball yourself and snap without any repercussions. There are rules in set and there are rules in place. Now, to put context to that, what Kyle had mentioned earlier with Dak Prescott's run, the clock was ticking. They had no timeouts, and they took the ball the Cowboys took the ball and they placed it down where they believe the play had ended instead of giving it to the referee to place it so that they could snap it and spike the ball. You can't just take it upon yourself to go and create a rule like that and just disregard what rules have been in place for years. You guys weren't ready. You guys played pretty bad all game. And I mean, like, I'm looking at Dallas's schedule, and I was telling Kyle this before. They did not play too many teams that were above 500 in terms of competitive football. They played the Bucks at the beginning of the year and lost. They played the Chargers, dodged a bullet there. They played the Eagles, so 3 straight above 500 teams now as the season ended. Then they go and play the Panthers, Giants, both teams under 500. They beat the Patriots. They beat the Vikings, Vikings under 500. Broncos under 500, Falcons under 500. They play the Chiefs and the Raiders and lose, obviously both teams over 500. The Saints, who ended up under 500, they won. Then they go on this little win streak where they go and place the Washington football team, the Giants, and Washington football team again under 500. They play the Cardinals, they lose, and then they play the Eagles fourth string and they win. So they haven't played meaningful football prior to the Cardinals game since Thanksgiving. There may be 12-5, but like Kyle always says, the NFC East is a shit show. And if you go undefeated in your division, that's 6 free wins. Everybody outside of the football team and the Giants, really, like, can you consider that to be competitive football? They're a fraud. 12-5. The streak continues, and the Dallas Cowboys fall again. To me, not a surprise whatsoever. But for you guys to sit there and blame Kellen Moore and freaking Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn, maybe I can understand Dan Quinn because the defense got annihilated. Maybe I can understand Kellen Moore for the late game play calling, but your offensive line was getting smoked. They weren't disciplined at the line of scrimmage. and Dak Prescott failed to cash in. They paid him what, Kyle, $70 million this year in that first year of his contract? Yeah, he threw 40 touchdowns, but did he get a postseason win? Nope.
I mean, Kevin, there's not really much else that I can add to what you said, but I'm pretty much going to limit it to like these two main points. The two main reasons for why the Cowboys lost this game are fairly simple: lack of discipline and not owning the line of scrimmage. I mean, Kevin, it's like you said, 14 penalties, and some of these penalties were so atrocious. You would think a team that was 12-5 during the regular season would have some sort of discipline going into a playoff game at home against the surging 49ers. But they kind of followed what they've been the entire season. The Cowboys have been one of, if not the most penalized team in the NFL throughout the entire season. And it shows up in the most inopportune time going up against the 49ers in this wild card matchup. And the second point is just not owning the line of scrimmage. I mean, Kevin, Dak Prescott got sacked 5 times this game. The 49ers had an amazing pass rush throughout the entirety of the game. I mean, Tyron Smith, their left tackle, who had only given up like 3 or 4 sacks the entire season, was getting blown up on that left side of the offensive line the entire game. And Dak, to his credit, was able to string some plays along. But, dude, it was a struggle for that Dallas offense to get any sort of momentum in that game. They only scored 7 points through the first 3 quarters. So you have to give a lot of credit to San Francisco's defense showing up and making a huge impact with that pass rush and just owning the line of scrimmage, because Ezekiel and Tony Pollard were non-factors in that game from beginning to end. So there's really the main 2 points that I wanted to bring up. And if I had to bring up a third one, it's just that Dallas continues to struggle in the playoffs once again. This is now 26 straight seasons that they have not made an NFC Championship appearance. I think they only have like 3 or 4 wins as a franchise in the playoffs in that time frame. So Dallas is just kind of living to their own expectations as far as these results go in the playoffs. And for Dallas, it's just an incredible failure. This is a team that I think a lot of people thought that could possibly make an NFC Championship appearance with the way that this roster was constructed. And finishing at 12-5, I think there was definitely some confidence going into the playoffs, but they fall short, and just kind of like they've always been the last 20 to 25 years or so, or 20 to 25 years, excuse me, they just fall apart when the lights are shining the brightest, and they let one slip once again. And Dallas is going to have to take the entire offseason, kind of look themselves in the mirror. This was a game that they probably should have won. Had they cut their turnovers and penalties in half, they probably win this game. But it's Dallas in the playoffs, bro, and they fall short once again. But you got to give credit to San Francisco. They made enough plays despite playing pretty bad in the fourth quarter, but they made enough plays to get them this win over the Cowboys and advance to the divisional round. So you got to give a lot of credit to San Francisco in that regard.